Hey everybody, I'm back with another video. My name's Clayton with Summit Auto Lab, and today we're doing another classic how-to on our shop 2008 Porsche Cayman S right here. You can see we've wrapped it green. But today we are getting ready to go on the Corsa America Rally. We're leaving bright and early in the morning, kind of procrastinated this job here. But what we're doing is we're replacing the pulleys. We're replacing the upper, the lower idler pulleys, and the tensioner pulley itself, not the whole tensioner unit, just the pulley. So I'm gonna quickly go over the parts you're gonna need and the steps. It's actually not that hard of a job, and it's good to prep the car. You don't want a pulley exploding. That's happened to me before, and you just start stranded on the road, you can't drive the car. So it's better to do this before you need to do it. But let's go through all the tools and parts you're gonna need. Okay, to start it off, these are the most important. So the bolts that are holding on the pulleys, the upper and lower idler pulleys, are these type. They're like reverse Torx bits. So they're like reverse Torx sockets. And I bought these on Amazon, and they're called E-sockets. So I'm not too familiar with if that's the proper name, but what you're gonna need is an E14 and an E12. Those are the names of the bolts that fit, or the sockets that fit the bolts right here. You're also gonna need a 24 millimeter socket, a 15-inch socket. If you have box wrenches that are those sizes, perfect. I happen to not have those. So I have a crescent wrench here, an adjustable one, because the space to work with in there is really tight, so that's actually gonna come in handy. I have some other ones too, so I'll pull those out. Another very important thing, you're gonna need a torque wrench. So this one is in pound-feet. Picked this up on Amazon also. It's not that expensive, and it's an amazing tool to have in your tool chest. So you're gonna need that, and some various extensions and adapters to fit different sockets and stuff. Another good thing is Loctite thread locker here. I have the blue 242, that's just what I have. The next step, I have already gone ahead and opened the engine bay so I can look at the serpentine belt. So to replace the pulleys, you're gonna have to remove the serpentine belt. So before I did that, I went ahead and I drew this diagram out so I know how the belt goes back on, just so you guys can see right here as a reference if you don't wanna draw your own. But we'll be replacing the upper and the lower pulleys and the tensioner pulley. So right here I have the E14 socket goes to the upper, E12 goes to the lower. I have 13 pound-feet of torque for the upper, 17 pound-feet of torque for the lower, and 44 pound-feet of torque for the tensioner pulley. So that's just a kind of a trail map for the project, just to make things way easier so you don't have to keep jumping on the phone and forget how to do all this. Anyways, next we have the pulleys that we bought. So I bought these from Pelican Parts, I believe. And this is what the box looks like right here. So you can kind of see it comes with a serpentine belt, which is right here, which we'll be replacing. It comes with the upper idler pulley, and you can tell this is the upper because the washer is bigger. So this is the lower one, has a smaller washer. So that's like really the only difference, but they're different parts. So you need both. You can't do this one on the bottom. So this is the upper, lower, and then this is the tensioner pulley and the tensioner pulley assembly. Now this is a much more involved to replace, so I'm just gonna be replacing this and leaving this, the stock bolts and everything, and the next time I replace it, I'll be replacing the whole unit here. It also comes with a cool sticker here. I'm gonna be placing that on the engine housing, which is right here. So this thing, I'm just gonna throw that on there just so I remember when I change the belt for the future. So other than that, those are all the parts we need. So let's get into the car and actually get to work. All right, so I've moved the seats forward, accessed the engine bay. If you don't know how to do this, I have another previous video on how to open up the engine from on top and behind the seats. Go ahead and watch that video. The link is down in the description. But since I've already made the video, I just skipped the whole thing. So as you can see, it's pretty tight back in here, but this is the upper and lower idler pulleys and the tensioner pulley. So they're right behind these shift cables and all that stuff. So it's gonna be a little bit tight, but it's easily doable. Okay, first step, we gotta take off the serpentine belt here. So you're gonna grab your 24 millimeter socket. Should fit perfectly right on the tensioner pulley. This is where it kind of gets a little snug and you may need to jam it in there, but you should be able to get your socket wrench in there. And what you're gonna do is put it to tighten, and you see that it's loosening up there, so you want to actually tighten that bolt, or that 24 millimeter socket, tighten it, and then you just want to loosen the serpentine belt. So because I have a broken hand here, it's going to be kind of tough, but that means that you guys can do it way easier than I can. So you're going to be tightening that, and then just pulling the belt right off. Boom. Just like that. And because we already drew our serpentine belt diagram, we don't have to use our brains to remember how this belt works, because it's kind of intense. So go ahead and remove this belt. Okay, we got it off. To remove this belt after we access the engine took 30 seconds. So that's how easy it is to take off the belt. Putting on the new belt isn't that hard either, but next step, we just gotta get those pulleys off and throw on the new ones. Okay, we got our E14 reverse torque socket, and pardon me if that's not the right term, but it works. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in here, and we're actually just gonna remove this top pulley. It'd be way easier from this side, actually. All right, breaking that bolt loose was just as easy as that. Just be careful you don't punch the surrounds here. I hit my knuckle right there, it kind of hurt. But so when removing this pulley, be very careful not to drop this spacer here, this washer spacer, and then there's another washer spacer behind. So what is really good is just hold your hand right underneath it. So if it does fall, it falls right in your hand. But what we're gonna do is continue to loosen this bolt here. Okay, now we can do it with our fingers. Okay, so now we got that. This will come out. This bolt's kind of long, so the bolt will have to come out first here. There we go. Okay, whew. Boom. Just like that. So these are the washers that I was talking about. They'll fall off if you're not careful there. But that's the old one. Don't even have to worry about that anymore. So you can kind of see this bolt is very, very long. So what I had to do is I had to pull and manipulate this metal here to get it to fit. So you can kind of see that it runs into it. So you gotta move that around a bit to get it to work. But we can just set that aside, and now we can work on the bottom pulley. All right, so we got the upper pulley removed. Now we gotta focus on the bottom one, which is the E12 socket. It's the same deal as this first one. It's just a little bit tougher to get to because it's lower. But same deal applies with the washers. When you remove the bolt, the washers are going to want to fall down, so you don't want to let them. Oh, and I threw a glove on because it's really, really dirty in there. All right, that one was actually way easier to remove than the top one because you can see that bolt size, way easier to manage. But like the first one, we can now go ahead and throw away the pulley, but keep the bolt. So we're gonna be reusing both of these bolts, just cleaning them up real quick and then throwing some Loctite on them, throwing them back in. So keep these, you can throw away the pulleys. So the next thing, now that we got some room to work in here, now we gotta remove this tensioner pulley. So the way this works is there is a bolt, but the bolt is installed from the back side. So it's really difficult. So if we go back to our notes, let me jump back there. All right, so I just jumped back to my notes, which always helps. So I remember now that this back side bolt is a 15 millimeter and this front side, you remember, is a 24. So you're gonna need a 15 millimeter box wrench, which I'm gonna have to improvise. It's really, really tight back there. And my box wrenches go from 16 to 14 millimeters. So I need to improvise there, but we have this 24 that fits on the outside here. So let me go grab a tool and we'll work on getting the bolt to, we'll get the bolt head attached in the back and then this reverses out. So we'll work on that next. Sal, are you gonna replace the tensioner pulley? Here you go. You gonna replace it?
Clayton's taking a break, so Sal's gonna take over from here. What's next? What's next?
Okay, so I improvised. It's not a perfect fit, but I have a 5/8 inch open end box wrench. I was able to get it in here from the passenger side. There's way more room now that we have removed these pulleys. So that's there. Now I'm gonna go from the driver's side here, which is the side I'm on. And with our 24 millimeter socket, we're gonna grab on here and start loosening. Getting this thing loose here. So you can kind of see my box wrench. I actually tightened the bolt so that I could get the closed end of the box wrench on the bolt, and then I went ahead and started loosening. So the wrench went down and rested on that other pulley there, so I wouldn't have to have two hands in there, considering I only have one. And I'm getting it loose here. So the same deal applies here. When I loosen this, there's gonna be some washers you don't want to fall out, because then you have to reach for them, or they'll be falling around at the bottom there, and you don't want anything getting caught. So you're just gonna keep loosening here. Okay, so I just loosened it all the way, and you're gonna be careful of these washers here. I'm gonna focus on the front side of the pulley first. So this washer is gonna wanna come off. Just be real careful. Got it off just like that. So we have the washer that you're looking at for, and the back side of the bolt. So the bolt that we have the box wrench on screws into this. So I'm gonna keep that and reinstall it. Next time when I fix these, because I plan on doing this pretty often because it's super easy, I'm gonna be replacing the tensioner assembly that's back behind, but because of the time crunch, I don't have time to do that. So save this piece if you're going to reuse it. Next step, you gotta get the pulley and another washer off. See that other washer there? So you got the pulley and the washer. These are both garbage. Now, we have another washer right there. I'm gonna set that up here. And because what we did, we tightened this to get the closed end of the box wrench on there. It's actually just stuck on there, but that's totally fine because we're reusing this bolt. If you were gonna be replacing this bolt, don't do that, where you're gonna have to actually like pry that and get it off. Use the open end, but because I'm reusing that, we're good right there. So let's go over to our table and grab the new pulleys. We'll throw some Loctite on these bolts here and just reinstall everything. Okay, so we got everything back out and we lay our parts back on this table. I was mistaken. I'm actually going to be saving these two washers here and this little spacer. I could reuse them, but I'm going to save these for when I replace this mechanism here, which I'm not 100% sure on replacing. I'll learn how to do that and make a video on it later. And then when I do, I have the parts necessary to replace it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back in the engine bay, add some Loctite to our stock bolts, and then what we're gonna do is start reassembling the same way we did the disassembly. We're gonna then go in reverse. So this is the tensioner pulley. So I'm gonna add my washers to this. I'm gonna clean these off, add the spacer to the back side. So it's pulley, washer, spacer. Slide them back on, throw on that bolt, tighten it all up to 44 pounds is what's on here from my research before. And then we'll go to the upper and lower and the same thing. So the lower is 17, upper's 34. I think I said 13 before, it's 34 pounds, obviously, because it says 34 there. All right, perfect. Let's get to reassembly. Okay, so I'm adding just a little bit of Loctite there. That's actually a little bit more than I should have put, but that's okay. I'm gonna grab the pulley. All right, just so you can compare, here's the old one, here's the new one. And this is how it's reapplied. We got the Loctite on there. It's the spacer here first. These washers go on here like that. So this goes on next, just like that. Then the pulley. Get everything spaced out correctly here. And then we got this washer. Boom, just like that. And now we want to hold that all together. Okay, now we want to hold this all together while we replace this piece right here. It's just kind of tighten here. So you want to make sure you get it in there. And then just thread it a couple times. You may need to hold the nut in the back with your finger at first. All right, so now we're gonna throw that box wrench back on. I'm tightening it with my torque wrench. You see the box wrench moving. That's actually good. I'm gonna use the alternator pulley just to give me some tension here so I can tighten this. Boom. And just a little snug past. So that's at 44 pounds. Now we just gotta work on getting this box wrench out of here, which it's kind of snug now, but we'll be able to wiggle it loose here, no problem. And then once this is off, boom. Now we want to go ahead and work on the lower and then upper. Okay, we opened the package, we got rid of the zip tie and pulled out the lower idler pulley assembly here, and I just slid the stock bolt in and added some blue Loctite. So now we want to just position this and make sure none of the washers or anything comes out. We just want to position this and start threading it in by hand down in the original hole. Okay, got it snugged up there. Now I'm gonna take this bit off here, this socket, and then grab a adapter for my torque wrench, and then we're gonna torque that down to 17 pounds, so not very much. But that's what Porsche says to torque it to. So because of some clearance issues, I'm not able to fit my 1/2-inch drive torque wrench. I may need to invest in a smaller one, maybe a 1/4 inch to get it in here that measures in pounds. But because this is only 17 pounds, I'm just gonna tighten it by hand and take my best guess. And I know that's not scientifically accurate, and some of you guys are gonna get kind of mad at me, but it's my car. You guys buy the right tools. I just didn't know I would have clearance issues. So I'm just gonna snug it up there and call it a day. So now we gotta work on the top one, which if you guys remember is this really long bolt. You can kind of see where to add that Loctite there. You're gonna go through this hole in the alternator, and there's a threaded hole way back there. I can see, the camera's not gonna be able to pick that up, but that's what you're threading it into, is way back in there. And remember the clearance issue's right here, so we're gonna have to deal with that also. But let's prep the pulley and get some Loctite on there. Okay, so I did the same thing before. I pulled off the zip tie from this pulley assembly with all the spacers and just transferred it straight to the bolt here. And added a little bit of Loctite on the front there. So we're just gonna start feeding it through this alternator hole. You're gonna have to try different positions with the pulley itself. The hardest part right here is getting this bolt flange over the engine bay housing. So you gotta kind of tweak it and move this metal just to get it on the inside. There we go. It's a lot easier to get in than it was to get out. All right, so now we gotta, from this position that I'm in right here, you can actually look through right by these cables and see the head of the bolt back there. There's no way I can get the camera to pick that up, but that's how you align it with the threaded hole, and then you just start threading that, and you're not going to be able to get very far with your fingers. But then we transfer back over to our E14 bit and just start tightening. So I got my torque wrench set up with an adapter here to fit that socket. So what we're going to do is get it in here. It's a tight snug again. Once it so you're going to tighten this to 34. And I like to do just a nice snug past it just to make sure it's locked in place. So there we go. This pulley here, and this pulley here are all set. You can spin them, make sure there's no wiggle. There should be zero play. The play is what is dangerous and what you're avoiding by fixing these now. So now we're just gonna replace the belt with the new belt. I have my map that I drew before I pulled the Serpentine belt off that I've showed you guys before, but this is why it comes in handy. I'm gonna be placing it just right up here, just so I know exactly where the belt is gonna go, so that there's no maybes or anything like that, and then I can just do it in one go. So I'm gonna kind of mess around here and figure out which pulley to start with, because with Serpentine belts, there's always like an easier way to do it, and it's usually starting with one of the bigger pulleys here and working it through. But I'm gonna work on that now. Okay, it's gonna go. Okay, I got the belt around all of the pulleys, no problem, except for this last one over here, which is the AC, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But now we're going to loosen the tensioner pulley so we can get the tension off the belt so we can install the belt. Okay, so because of my wrist injury, it's kind of difficult right now, so I switched from having to put that pulley on to having to slide it just on this non-ribbed side there. Okay, that was way easier to get it on that way. So you can see I'm just putting it on the tensioner and the lower idler pulley, letting the tension off, making sure it fits on everywhere here. All right, yeah. Okay, so if you have a 24mm box wrench, which is something I'm going to be investing in, you can go ahead and turn by hand this lower pulley off that nut right there, just to make sure everything's lined up. This does not fit in there, so I'm going to kind of do the more riskier route and just turn the engine over real fast, make sure the belt seats properly, and then I'll turn it back on after everything's okay, make sure it runs properly, and then I'll reinstall the engine cover here, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, we're all done. I reinstalled the engine cover and carpet, let it run for a little bit and make sure nothing was wrong, the belt didn't fall off. Everything is good to go. So that kit right there, I bought it a few months ago. I'm not quite sure the price. I believe it was a couple $100, like $350, something like that. It was on sale. But quick story, so I'm replacing these now so that I don't run the risk of the pulleys exploding. The pulleys themselves are plastic. If there's any wobble or vibration in them, they do run the risk of exploding. That happened to me once in Las Vegas on a Course of America rally in my previous Cayman, a base model. And because I was stranded in Vegas, I had to pay for a tow, get it to a European shop, have them overnight fix it. So I had to overnight this parts kit, which doubled the price, had them install it, and that cost me almost $2,500. It was like $2,450, something like that, just so that I could make it home to get back to work. So doing maintenance before it needs to be done saves you so much money. That right there took me about 2 hours because I have a busted wrist and I was filming for you guys. But if you're doing it on your own, you could easily do it within an hour. $350 an hour of your time saves you about $2,000 in the long run if you're going on a bit long road trip. But thank you so much for watching this video. I have more how-tos when I get back from this trip. Going to be doing the water pump, spark plugs, coils again, oil change, air filter, cabin air filter, coolant flush, all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned. We also got a lot more vehicles coming into this shop next month for wraps and paint protection film. We got some really cool cars coming in. So thank you. Stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you in our next videos.